Hello, and thank you so much for joining this grant application overview for our Backing Small Businesses grant program. For those of you who may have attended the live webinar, we did have an issue with the recording, so this is a re-record. There may be some slight changes, but the majority of the content will be the same. My name is Amanda. I am the Associate Manager for the Corporate Grants Program, and my main focus is the Backing Small Businesses grant program. On the agenda for our call today, we'll have some introductions. This program is sponsored and supported by American Express, and we'll talk a little bit about Main Street America and the role that we play. We'll then talk a little bit more about the Backing Small Businesses grant program, including the eligibility and the application. And then finally, if there are any questions, you are welcome to email smallbizgrant@mainstreet.org. That email address will pop up later in the slideshow as well, so you will be able to see it and email if you have any questions. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who Main Street America is. We are a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We lead a movement dedicated to re-energizing and strengthening older and historic downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts nationwide. And we do that with our network of more than 1,600 grassroots organizations, as well as 46 state, county, and city level coordinating programs that help organize those organizations. These organizations in our network are united by a commitment to fostering strong local economies and enhancing the distinctive character that makes communities attractive to residents, visitors, and businesses. We use what we call the Main Street approach, which is our time-tested framework for community-driven revitalization, which equips local leaders with practical, adaptable, and a balanced approach to achieve economic health and quality of life. We started in 1980, and since then we've had over 2,000 programs that have used the Main Street approach, which has resulted in billions reinvested in communities, new jobs created, new businesses started, buildings rehabilitated, and millions of volunteer hours leveraged. The Main Street approach emphasizes a focus on a holistic approach to community transformation. We focus on 4 key areas. The first is organization, organizations around who is leading different areas of the town and different areas of revitalization. We also talk about promotion and how we promote the different events, businesses, and goings on in the town, as well as design. This could involve urban design or street design, anything about how the community is designed to support its community. And then finally, the most relevant to this program is economic vitality. Obviously, small businesses are a huge part of this component, and it's something that at the national level, we're really excited to focus on with this particular grant program. So let's talk a little bit more about this grant program. The Backing Small Businesses program launched in 2021 to help small business owners recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and grow their business. And that program has shifted and changed over the years. And this year, we're anticipating $5.75 million in total awards, which will support locally significant small businesses who are facing economic challenges and help them overcome economic hardship, grow, and drive community impact. That $5.75 million is going to come out in 3 different batches. The first batch was we had a disaster recovery focused round, which already occurred earlier this year. And we had 100 recipients who were just announced within the past few weeks who received $10,000 each. The current round, which is the one that you all will be applying for, is open to 400 recipients who will receive $10,000 each. Both of those will have until the end of the year, December 31st, to spend that $10,000 grant. And then in January, when you fill out your final report form, those 500 recipients pulled from both of those pools, a limited 25 recipients of a subset of them will be selected to receive an additional $30,000 enhancement grant. Again, that is only open to those who were recipients of one of the first 2 rounds. And that application for the enhancement grant will come as part of the final report form that both groups will have to fill out. So let's talk a little bit about what makes you eligible for this grant program. The applicant must be the owner of the business. You must be at least 18 years or older, and your business must have been in operation on or before January 1st, 2024. We know that businesses go through changes, so there may be some parts of your business that may not that may not exist anymore, such as maybe you were a home-based business or an online-only business, but you've since then moved into a brick and mortar storefront, for example. But as long as you have business records dating on or before January 1st, 2024, that's what we're looking for, even if the business has changed shape since then. The business must be an independent business, not part of a franchise, and the business must not be a nonprofit. This particular program is for for-profit businesses. Main Street America does have some programs that are open to nonprofits. This grant program just happens to not be one of them. So only for-profit businesses. The businesses must employ less than 20 full-time equivalent employees. That includes yourself as the owner and applicant. And the way that we determine what is a full-time equivalent, if you have part-time employees, we look at what percentage of the schedule of a regular full-time employee they have. So let's say you have 3 employees, one of whom is full-time and works 20 hours a week. And then you have 2 part-time employees who each work 10 hours a week. Since 10 is 50% of 20 hours, each of those part-time employees would count as a half of a full-time equivalent employee. So even though you have 3 different people, you would have 2 full-time equivalent employees since they have a total of 40 hours between them. The business must be in good standing in the state in which it was formed and the state in which it does business. For most of you, these 2 will be the same, but there are some businesses that might have operated across state lines or maybe have moved across state lines. So you must be in good business, in good standing in whichever state is applicable for you. The business should also have an active business license if it's required by the state or local government. And we'll talk a little bit more about the business license requirement and the good standing requirement. The main point I want to focus on here is that for some sole proprietorships and single member LLCs, there may not be the ability to determine if you're in good standing if your Secretary of State does not track that, in which case we will require that you submit an active business license with your application. You must not be a recipient of a previous Backing Small Businesses grant. That includes the Disaster Recovery Grant Program, which happened earlier this year, but also any previous cycle in a previous year for the Backing Small Businesses Grant Program. And you must not be a recipient of a grant supported by American Express in 2025. I don't necessarily have access to the full list of all of those programs. I can list some examples, which would include the Backing Historic Restaurants Program, as well as some hurricane recovery funds and disaster recovery funds that were not part of the Backing Small Disaster Recovery Grants. But if you are a recipient of a grant supported by American Express in 2025, you would not be eligible to apply for this particular program. We want to make sure that we are spreading the love and having as many different folks receiving money as possible. So if you've previously been a recipient of a Backing Small Business grant, or if you've been a recipient of a grant supported by American Express, we appreciate you, but we would strongly advise you not to apply, and we will be double checking those recipient lists. And then our final eligibility requirement is that your business has to operate out of a brick and mortar location on or before January 1st, 2025, so over the past 6 months or so, at least at minimum, in an older or historic Main Street, downtown, or commercial district in the United States or US territories. That means if you are an online-only or a virtual business, if you are a home-based business that operates out of your residence or a residence, or if you're a mobile business, such as a business that is only based out of a food truck, you are not going to be eligible for this grant program. You do have to operate out of a brick and mortar storefront and have operated out of that particular brick and mortar storefront on or before January 1st, 2025. When we talk about what we look for in an older or historic Main Street, downtown, or commercial district, we're looking for places that are the heart of their communities. And by that, we mean the commercial heart. That can take many different sizes or forms. So that definition is intentionally flexible. We generally describe it as it must be a contiguous commercial district. So businesses and mixed-use buildings that operate in a commercial corridor. That means we're not looking for a business that is tucked in among residential areas. And we're looking for those kind of areas where you might spend half a day running errands, visiting with friends, doing shopping, those kinds of things. Again, this is intentionally flexible. So you can see some examples of what is eligible and not eligible on the right side. But we do recognize that this will look very different in different sized communities. In urban communities, it might look more like wall-to-wall commercial on one kind of main high street with a lot of activity. In a suburban area, it might look more like little pockets of small business that are around parking lots or plazas. There may be a couple different pockets of commercial areas within your town. It may not be just the one singular main street, but there might be a couple different spots that are kind of hot commercial zones. And in some of our more rural areas, maybe it's just a couple of stores around a single intersection. So we do take that into account when we're reviewing. We're not expecting every community to look the same. And we look at that within the context of what your town looks like. So essentially, if we were to look on Google Maps and look up your town, would we as reviewers feel that this is an area where people might flock to for shopping or for commercial purposes, and not just kind of happen along a single store tucked in among a bunch of residences? If you have any specific questions about your particular eligibility, you are always welcome to email us. And again, that email will appear at the end of the presentation as well. In addition to being eligible to apply, we also have to talk about what are eligible uses for the grant funds so that you can develop your budgets. You can use the grant funds for things like accessibility upgrades, such as putting in a ramp, translating your menu, redesigning your website. You could also talk about community events and programs such as open mic nights, training workshops, community events, partnerships with other small businesses. You could use funds towards equipment and inventory, such as point of sale devices, items that you have for sale, just regular merchandise, display cases, kitchen equipment. You can also spend funds on marketing, such as investing in a social media campaign or building a website. You can spend your grant funds on what we call operational strategies, which are things that are there to support the viability of your business. That could be things like a branding package, hiring a consultant for business coaching, purchasing accounting software, anything kind of towards that logistical back end for your business. You can also spend grant funds on physical repairs and improvement, things like signage, awnings, facades, new shelves, new lighting, new floors. One thing we do want to note here is that if you are doing any kind of physical repairs or improvements, and this may also apply to some of the accessibility upgrades or sustainability upgrades as well, that if you are not the owner of the building that you work in, that you make sure you have permission from the landlord to make these changes. We will ask for you to include that. That could be a shot from part of your lease. It could be a screenshot of a conversation you've had where you've gotten their approval. But we want to make sure that you have permission to make those changes if you are not the owner of your space. You can use the grant funds towards sustainability upgrades, as I mentioned, things like solar panels, putting in a rain garden, switching your packaging that you're using. You can also use it for any kind of technology upgrade, such as building an online storefront or another e-commerce platform. And you can use grant funds towards utility expenses. We do include rent as a part of utility expenses in addition to your traditional water, power, heat, cell phone bill, those kinds of things. However, when you are adding utility expenses to your budget, they can be no more than $2,000 or 20% of your requested funds. The other 80% should come from some of these other eligible categories. We want to make sure that we are supporting utilities that you have to pay, but we also want to make sure that the grant is going towards other reasons as well. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. You are welcome to use the grant for other purchases or other ideas for projects that you have. The main ineligible uses for the grant funds, you cannot use the grant funds towards payroll. You cannot use the grant funds towards debt or loan repayment, and that would include paying off a credit card, and also for payment of invoices for work that has been completed prior to the grant. So for example, if you had work done to make a physical improvement and that work was done in May, and you have the invoice from that contractor, you would not be able to use the grant to pay off that previous invoice for the work that was done. The work that must be done has to happen once the grant funds are awarded between that date and the spending deadline. If you have any of these items in your budget, we will mark your application as ineligible. We do not have the opportunity to have you adjust your budget, so you have to make sure that you correct that budget ahead of time and that you do not spend the grant funds on those ineligible uses. But other than those, The grant is pretty wide open. You're welcome to use the funds towards whatever would be most helpful for you and your business. All right, so let's talk about the application. So some key dates. The application will open on Wednesday, July 16th at 9 a.m. Central Time. That will appear on our website. There will be a link that you can click. That link will not exist until 9 a.m. on July 16th, so keep an eye out for it. Once the application is open, you will have just over 2 weeks. So on Thursday, July 31st at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, the application will automatically close. So make sure you submit your application before that time, keeping into account any time zone differences that may apply to you. During the months of August and September, our team will be reviewing and following up if we have any questions. During that time, we will reach out to you if there is something that is needed from you for us to complete our review. We're expecting to announce the recipients in October. So that means that with the spending deadline of December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, you will have about 2.5 to 3 months to spend the funds. So please keep in mind when you're budgeting and planning your project, that is a pretty busy time of year. And we do recognize that sometimes around the holidays, there may be some delays, supply chain issues, weather, things like that, that may impact your project. So please take that into account when you're planning your project. That's something we will look at as well. Once you've finished your spending deadline, you will have about 2 weeks to complete your final grant report. And as I mentioned, for those who complete their final grant report, you will have the option to also apply for the enhancement grant at that time. So we will make sure that you have some information prior to when that final report goes out, talking more about this in detail. But keep in mind that that enhancement grant application will be part of that final report if you choose to apply. You can always just submit your final report and not apply if you prefer. It's up to you. So when the application appears on our website, you will be able to go and click on it, and it will bring you to a separate website called Submittable. Submittable is the platform that we use to handle all of our applications and our reviews. So if you've never made an account on Submittable, you will have to go and create one. You will just enter your email, set up a password, add your name. You should then get a verification link in your email, and you can see an example of that in the bottom left here. That email will come from notifications@email.submittable.com, and I would make sure to verify your email so that way you don't have any issues logging back into Submittable later if you need to. That email does sometimes get stuck in your spam or junk mail folders, so please keep an eye out there. It should arrive pretty shortly after you create your account, so if you don't see it, please reach out to Submittable's support team. Also, if you're using a Gmail account, sometimes that email goes into the social and promotions folder instead of your main inbox. So you can also check that folder there as well. If you've previously applied for a program with us and you already have a Submittable account, you're welcome to just log in and you will be able to see any prior applications in there. We do ask that you fill out a new application for this program, but you are welcome to see your previous answers to some of the questions and potentially reuse some of that information if needed. Once you get into the application, the page is translatable with Google Translate. However, we do ask that the application be filled out in English. Right now, we don't have the ability to review applications in other languages, but if you do need to use a translator or a service to help you fill out the application in English, there is a space on the application to put their contact information. That way, if we do have any questions about your application, when we reach out to you, we can also reach out to them and they can help facilitate that conversation if needed. When you get to the application, there's going to be 2 different forms. The first is an eligibility form, which you will have to go through and confirm that you meet all of the different eligibility requirements for your business. If those questions are all answered correctly, then you will be able to proceed to the main application form, which has the remainder of the questions. If there is an incorrect answer on that eligibility form, you will be redirected back to our main page with a note saying that you are not eligible for the program at this time, and you will not be able to submit the main application. So please read through that carefully. However, please also make sure you're answering truthfully. We do double check for eligibility. So if you think that you can just answer the question in the way that we want to hear and then move on, that is something that we will double check, and we will mark your application as ineligible on the inside. When you're filling out your main application form, you can save your draft, so you can come back and return to it later if you need to. And then when you go to hit that final submit button, make sure you double check all of your answers, because we will not have the ability to make edits to your application after you've clicked that submit button. So please double check and make sure that everything is correct and accurate before you submit. What do you need with you when you're going to fill out the application? You will need about 5 to 7 photos or videos showing us your business. The goal for these is to just give our reviewers a sense what it's like to walk into your business. How does it feel to be a regular customer? Since we can't be everywhere across the US all the time, we need to experience this virtually. So showing us what it looks like from the sidewalk. What does your front of your building or your store look like? What does it feel to walk into the public spaces? And then if you're doing a project that involves something in the back room, show us a little bit of that too. If you're doing something in the back office or the storeroom, just take some pictures, show us what that looks like. If you are doing any kind of physical improvement project, we will also ask you separately for some before photos of that area, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You will also need any quotes from contractors or suppliers, if that's applicable to the type of project you're proposing. We do this because we know that 2.5 to 3 month spending window goes by really, really quickly, especially if you're doing any kind of construction or repair, or if you're purchasing large equipment that might have a long lead time. So we want to see these quotes. Sometimes they might be a full quote that's submitted by a contractor. Sometimes, like say, for example, kitchen equipment, you might just have a screenshot of the website that your supplier uses. This helps us know that you are prepared, you have a plan, and you're ready to hit the ground running if you were to receive the grant. And that way you'll be able to complete the project on time. You will also need to have with you a copy of your most recent business tax return. We will not ask you to actually upload this information, but there are questions on the application that ask you to reference parts of those forms. So make sure you have those close by. The reason for this is we need some of your information that you submit about your business to exactly match the IRS databases from your previous tax return in order for us to issue funds. So please make sure you have that with you, make sure you're double checking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you're a sole proprietor, as I mentioned, you might not have the ability to pull a certificate of good standing, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we will ask you to submit a copy of your business license. These licenses could be issued by the state, they might be issued by the county, or by your town or village. Any of those licenses would be fine as long as it is an active license, just showing that you have approval to run your business where it is located. And then finally, you won't need to submit a copy of your certificate of good standing, but you can go and verify that you have one and that you are in good standing before you submit your application. We will do a check ourselves as well. However, if you can verify the status of your business with your Secretary of State before you apply, you have more lead time to be able to correct any potential issues. And therefore, if those issues get corrected, it might help us select you as a recipient, depending on how your application scores. So checking if you're in good standing may not be something you've ever done before. So here's a little bit about how you can do that. Unfortunately, the website is different for every single state, so I don't have a list of a URL that you can click, but most of the time it's done through the Secretary of State for your state. So Googling something like business entity lookup or business entity search, and then your state's name will help you find it. It should be one of those first few links that appears. There is also a website, secstates.com, where you can look for your state in a list and then click the link. That website is not run or sponsored by Main Street America, so we cannot guarantee the validity of any of those links, but it has been mostly accurate from my experience. I will also note that website does have a lot of ads and pop-ups, so please keep that in mind as you're clicking through the website. As I noted earlier, if you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, you may not be able to search for your business. If you search for your business name, it may come up with no results on the website. This will vary from state by state. Some states will include single member LLCs, others will not. So if you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, That is why we ask for a copy of your business license instead. But if you are a different type of LLC or a corporation, or even a partnership sometimes, you should appear in that Secretary of State website. So just search for your business name, make sure you have the spelling accurate. Some state websites are especially particular about punctuation as well. So please double check that when you're searching. And you're looking for a status associated with your business that should have some sort of positive connotations. Active, in good standing, compliant, things like that. If you see those words, you should be good to go. If you are marked as something like inactive or delinquent or non-compliant, often this is a pretty quick fix. Most of the time, there's just a missing annual report or a fee, and that can be filed and paid online. Those fees tend to be fairly small, usually about $25 to $50, though it can vary state by state. And usually you can pay that online or file a missing report online, and those issues can be corrected within about 2 weeks. So if you double check your standing and you do that at the start of the application period, you should be able to see changes happen by the time the application closes. If you're still waiting for those changes to go through, you can always email us and let us know, hey, I submitted my application, but I spoke to the Secretary of State and I'm still waiting for them to update their records. You're welcome to email that to us and we will keep track of it as we complete our review. If there's something else that's happening with your account, if it's not clearly indicated on the website how you can fix the status, you will have to contact the state office that's associated with that website. Again, usually the Secretary of State, sometimes it's under a different department. We at Main Street America will not be able to answer questions about why your business is in a certain status. I will also note, sometimes when you go to a state website, it will ask you to download or purchase a certificate or pay a small fee in order to view the records. You do not need to pay any fees. If you are in a state that requires you to pay a fee to look up a record, please do not put yourself out by paying for it. If there is a fee that needs to be paid, we will do that on our end when we do the review. So don't concern yourself with that. We don't want you to spend extra money to purchase a certificate. And like I said, we won't ask you to upload a copy of it. That is a check that we will do on our end internally after the applications have come in. All right, so let's talk about the application questions themselves. As I mentioned, the first thing you'll do is go through that eligibility form, which must be filled out correctly in order to proceed to the main application. The first thing you'll have to enter is basic owner and business information, phone numbers, email, contact info. The legal entity name for your business is particularly important. You'll see several questions which will refer back to your business tax returns. An example of one of those is here in the bottom left corner. We will tell you what form we expect you to have filled out based on the type of business that you are filing as, whether that's a corporation or an LLC or a partnership. And we ask for you to provide the name exactly as it appears on that form. That can include things like punctuation or abbreviations. So LLC could be different from L.L.C. So please make sure that you are providing that exactly as it appears on your tax return. If that information isn't accurate, it may cause delays and it may prevent you from receiving the grant. Also in this portion, we will ask if your business is located in a low-income census tract. This is just based on the geographic location where your address is, and there is instructions in the application on how to access that website, search for your address, and determine if you're in one of those tracts. This is also where you may be asked to upload a copy of your business license if you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. And then if you have any website links or links to social media pages for your business, Instagram, Facebook, any of those would be fine to include there. The next section will be a business overview. So this will ask you about the start date for your business, what type of business, whether you're a coffee shop or a gymnasium or a laundromat. You will then have several short answer questions, which will ask you about how you got started as a business owner. What made you want to become a small business owner? What changes have you gone through and what is your business like right now? How involved are you in your community? Who are your core customer bases? Who are the people that you serve? Those kinds of things. All of these short answer questions have a maximum of 250 words. So we're not expecting you to write multiple pages. These should be just a paragraph, maybe two. You're also totally welcome to put in bullet points. It does not have to be complete sentences, as long as we get a sense of the answer and you provide us with the details that you want to. We'll also ask about your employee numbers, both full-time and part-time, and also what your net sales have been in the previous year. And then this is the space where you would upload photos and videos of your business. We will accept multiple different file types, and you do have the opportunity to upload a mixture of those. The next section of your application is going to be your project description, which again will be a similar 250-word maximum short answer question, and then a space to include a short budget. We're not looking for a super detailed budget. A bullet point budget, such as the example on the right side, is totally fine. We do require some details, but it doesn't have to be fully itemized. We don't need to know every single piece of paper or pencil that you're going to purchase, but we want to know kind of broad spending categories. So for example, we talk in the example budget about purchasing POS terminals, and we mentioned specifically that we're going to buy Square terminals, so we know who the supplier is. That helps us be able to tell if that pricing seems reasonable, if that's something that you've clearly researched and you have a plan for where you're going to purchase your materials. We might also want to see things like in the third bullet point that you reference who the contractor is for any kind of physical repairs. Then there is space in the optional file upload area where you can add any quotes. But we want to know that you've thought about who your contractor is, that you've sourced any necessary permits if that's something that's required, that you have permission from your landlord. You can also upload that in the optional file area, and that you have a plan to hit the ground running for those physical improvement projects. And then also kind of general categories. You'll see for inventory, for example, we talk a little bit about the types of inventory that's needed. Again, we don't need it fully itemized. We don't need to know that you're going to buy 5 bushels of potatoes and you're going to buy, so many gallons of juice, but just letting us know roughly what types of things you will be purchasing. The final selection of questions will be optional questions and questions that are not seen by our reviewers. So these are additional information for us as we manage our program to continue to make improvements and some general overall stats, but they will not impact your reviews and they will not impact your scores. These can include things like demographic questions, whether or not you use American Express or allow American Express for purchases. It might include if you had somebody apply or help you with your application, such as a translator. This is where you can include their contact info. That way, if we do have any questions as we're reviewing, we have that contact info to reach out to them as well. We may also ask if you're connected to your local Main Street program. And then finally, we have some additional research and publicity options that you can opt into. If we do any additional publicity or research in the future, we'll have that opt-in available to us and we can know to reach out to you for a potential opportunity. All right. So you've submitted your application. What are we looking at on our end when we make our determination? The first thing we look at, we are double checking eligibility. So again, you do have to fill out the eligibility form, but if you filled it out and you just answered something that was the way that we wanted to hear it, we will be double checking and we will mark your application as ineligible based on the remaining parts of your application, if that is the case. The main 4 areas that we look at, the first one is feasibility. This is scored on a 1 to 10 scale. We're looking for projects that can be completed with the $10,000 grant by December 31st of this year. That doesn't necessarily mean that the whole grant or the whole project has to be $10,000. You are welcome to use the grant funds towards a project that costs more than $10,000, but we will ask for somewhere in your project description or in your budget that you indicate where any of those additional funds would come from. If you have another grant that you've been awarded, or if it's just coming out of your business savings, or if you have a loan that you've already applied for, we just want to know that you have the funds in hand to be able to work with the $10,000 and complete the project by that spending deadline. We also want to know that you have those suppliers in mind and those contractors identified. You have quotes up front, so you're not just eyeballing what you think the cost will be, but you've actually had one of the contractors come and take a look and provide a quote. And also that you've got any permits or permissions from your landlord if needed. Again, the spending window, which will be from October until December, does cover a lot of the major holidays in the US, so make sure you're planning around anticipated holiday disruptions. That could be if people are out of town visiting family, supply chain disruptions as things get really busy. Your store might be really busy and you may not have access to some of the spaces you might during other parts of the year. Or it could just be weather related that causes delays. So make sure you're planning around that and anticipating those and that you have backup options if needed. The second main category, again, these are all scored out of 10. We'll look at your need. So what are your net sales for your business? Is your business in one of those low income census tracts? Are you struggling with systemic challenges as you talk about your business and how it's grown in those short answer questions? What are some of the things you've been struggling with? Maybe there are supply chain issues or you've had issues with staffing. All of those are great details to include. You may also have any recent extenuating circumstances, something that came up in the short term that needs to be addressed. That could be something like a disaster that occurred. It could also be something like maybe your town has planned construction on the road and you're expecting lower foot traffic. Anything that's happened in the short term that you still need to address, and these grant funds would help you address that need. The next major category is impact. So we want to know that the project that you're proposing is addressing those needs and concerns that you have. We want the funding to help keep your business viable and keep your business sustainable for the next few years. So we want to know that these funds will help you leverage sales and grow your customer base and really help keep your business around and acting strong and being a part of the community. And finally, the fourth major area that we look at is community reach. And this can look in a couple different ways. You won't necessarily hit all of these points, but you might hit one or two of them. And that's really what we're expecting. You might have historical significance. Maybe your business has been around in town for many generations and it's kind of a local landmark. It could also be particularly unique in the types of services or products that you offer. Maybe you provide something that's not available within a certain mile radius of your community. Or maybe you provide products that service particular portions of your community with specialty products that you can't purchase elsewhere. And then we're also looking for businesses that are engaged and active in the community. We recognize that not every business is going to be a coffee shop that can provide open mic nights. So we do take this in the context of what your business is, what your main kind of customer base and product offerings are. But we want you to be engaged and active in your community in some way or form. That may look like hosting community events. It may look like working in partnerships with other small business owners. It may be offering specialty services or products or deals to your community. It may also just look like participating in the Chamber of Commerce in your area or another business development organization or your Main Street program. So any way that you can, we just want to see that you're engaged with your community as much as possible, while also recognizing that you all are busy and that it's not always possible to have an event type engagement. So with all of those main categories in mind, what makes a strong application? The first thing is to make sure that the pictures and video that you submit highlight what a typical day at your business looks like. Again, we can't be everywhere in the US, so those pictures and those videos are really our main way as reviewers to see what it looks like to walk into your business and what do people in your community feel when they come to your business. There will be separate space to upload any photos for an area that you're looking to do a physical improvement or an accessibility project, such as adding a ramp. We do want these before photos to be uploaded for those types of projects because when you fill out your final report form, we will ask for an after photo. So we want to have that comparison, and we don't want you to have to dig through and find a before photo multiple months down the line and maybe potentially not even have one. So if you indicate that you're doing any types of those improvements, we do ask for you to submit a before photo. In your answers, we want to see that you have pride in your business and your neighborhood. So these really, especially in those short answer questions, are where this can shine. What are you doing that is unique or special to your business? What is exciting to you as a small business owner? How are you involved in and critical to your surrounding community? How have you displayed things like determination, resourcefulness, adaptability? All of these are great things to include, especially in those short answer questions that really provide that personal character and flavor about your story. But we also want you to be honest about what concerns or difficulties you face. If there are larger long-term challenges that you've faced, we would like to know that up front. The real goal is making sure that these grants can be useful to you. So we want to know, what are the ways that this grant can help you? We've seen in the past, some folks have applied. For example, we might have an application from a coffee shop that decides, I'm going to apply, but I'm going to apply to spend all of the $10,000 creating a scholarship for local high school students to go to college. That's really great, and that's really altruistic, but that's not what this grant program is for. We want you to be a little bit selfish. We want these funds to go towards you and your business, and make sure that we're helping you first and foremost. We recognize that that's a really great promotional tool sometimes. So if it's a small part of your budget, we may allow for that. But really, we want the majority of the budget for your program to be helping you and your business specifically. We also want to make sure that you have accounted for any kinds of roadblocks, supply chain issues, potential weather, things like that, that you've kind of pre-thought what those might be and how you might adapt if needed to for your project to make sure you can still complete it. Again, a big portion of a strong application is making sure that you have a project that is feasible to complete by that December 31st deadline. That means we want to see a budget that is pretty clearly broken down, not necessarily itemized. Like I said, we don't need to know every single hat or t-shirt that you're going to purchase, but that we have rough categories of the different prices or different components of your project. We want to know that you've had the thought put into it ahead of time and that you're ready to hit the ground running as soon as the funds hit your account, because you only have that 2.5 to 3 month spending window. We want to make sure that if you have any kind of large equipment purchases or physical improvements, again, that you have those suppliers and contractors listed and included, and any quotes or screenshots necessary included in your application. And then finally, we want your application to be clear and concise. As I mentioned, a lot of our short answer questions are going to be maxed at 250 words, so you're not going to be writing multiple pages to fill out this application. You are welcome to use bullet points. You're welcome to use abbreviations, as long as we can understand what you are trying to say in that short answer space. We're not going to be looking at your grammar or your spelling or your capitalization or anything like that. As long as we can understand the gist of your short answer question, that's really what we're looking for. So don't worry about being absolutely perfect or having the most clear, beautiful language possible. We want to make this application as easy for you all to fill out, because we know that you're busy, and we're not going to be judging your spelling or your grammar. So again, just to recap some of our key dates here. Wednesday, July 16th is when that application link will open on our webpage. And that application will stay open for just over 2 weeks. It will close automatically on Thursday, July 31st at 11:59 p.m. This is all Central Time, so keep that in mind if you're in a different time zone, and make sure you submit your application by that date. Then we'll have a couple months of review and follow-up, and we're hoping to announce the recipients in early October to give you all about a 2.5 to 3 month spending window. The spending deadline is December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. And then recipients will have about 2 weeks to fill out their final grant report. If they choose to apply for an enhancement grant, there will be an option on that final report form where they can indicate yes, they intend to apply. Clicking that will then open up the main application form for the enhancement grant program. One note about the enhancement grants, we appreciate that a lot of folks have a lot of really great ideas, but during this application, we really want you to focus on what you're going to do with the $10,000 grant first. We're not going to be judging your application based on your ideas for the $30,000 enhancement grant. We're only going to be looking at what you are doing with the $10,000. If you receive the $10,000, your enhancement grant may be related to what you do with the $10,000. It may be something completely different. But for this round, when we're reviewing applications, we want you to focus on that $10,000 budget and your project for that $10,000 only. If you have any further questions, you're always welcome to go to our website where we have some additional details, FAQs, those kinds of things. If you have any questions specifically about Submittable, for example, if you have any issues logging in, accessing your email or password insubmittable, you will have to contact Submittable's support team directly. We at Main Street America don't have the ability to manage any of the user accounts on that website, but you're welcome to email us and we can direct you to their support team. If you have any questions about your eligibility, any questions about any specific scenarios that come up, if you have been working to address something with the Secretary of State and want to let us know, those sorts of questions can all be emailed to smallbizgrant@mainstreet.org. Please keep in mind when you're emailing that we may have to take a couple business days depending on how busy the inbox is getting to get back to you. But we do intend to get back to you as soon as we possibly can to answer your questions and make sure you have enough time to finish the application. Thank you all so much for joining, and we're looking forward to receiving your application. Thank you so much.